With the advent of Islam in the 7th century, we have the completion of a process whereby paganism is largely eradicated from what is the Western world. First through the creation of Christianity in the early centuries of the Common Era, and then followed by the appearance of Islam hundreds of years later. So the process was actually quite amazing in hindsight. Maimonides, the great medieval Jewish scholar from Spain, over 800 years ago, when commenting on why did these religions have to come into being, he makes a very, very interesting statement, and I'm paraphrasing Maimonides now. But if we look in hindsight, we understand from the very beginning, the goal of the Jewish people has been to connect humanity to God. We saw at the very beginning of human history that humanity had lost that relationship, and along came Abraham and chose for himself and his descendants this unique responsibility to bring humanity back to relationship with God. There's no question that ideally, in the best of all possible worlds or the best of all possible historical scenarios, the Jewish people would have lifted the entire world out of paganism and directly into monotheism. But because we didn't have our act together, we didn't make necessarily the right decisions, that didn't happen. So God, so to speak, has to switch to plan B. That's what Islam and that's what Christianity are ultimately about. Two offshoots of Judaism, theologically and historically, which are much, much, much closer to Judaism than Judaism ever was to paganism. If we think about it, any believing Christian or Muslim will tell you there's one God. He created the world. There's one standard of morality that comes from that God. He gave the Jewish people the Torah at Mount Sinai. The fifth point is a little problematic. Then he changed his mind and chose us instead. That's a different problem. But that really represents the great spiritual transformation in human history, and this is exactly the point that Maimonides makes. He says that today, unlike thousands of years ago when we were alone in the world, as the only people who believed in one God and everyone thought we were crazy, now Maimonides says the whole world is talking about one God and the destiny of humanity. So even though it's not in the most ideal way, nonetheless, Christianity and Islam are all part of this divine plan to bring the world back to God. That's on the good side. But the negative side, of course, is as much as Christianity and Islam are much closer to Judaism and part of this grand scheme of things, these two religions now believe that they have replaced the Jewish people, and it's their job to bring the world back to God.